I think it's sad that I have to make a video like this in this day and age, but all around the world, misogyny and sexism are on the rise, and there are parts of the world where women are treated worse than others. But in the West, we pride ourselves on women's rights, and it's kind of a faulty notion because women have had to fight for their rights and all throughout time, and now we're seeing a reversal of the rights that they've fought for. And other parts of the world deal with the same kind of issues where there's advancement and then there's regression. So, in my personal experience, there's a lot of stereotypes about Asian women being subservient or very demure towards men or good housekeepers, these kind of things. And in my experience, that was actually very far from the truth. So, growing up, I didn't see any point to feminism. I thought it was bullshit. I thought it was lying because my mother was, or my mother is, a very strong personality, and she would boss my father around. And from my point of view, and it actually made me not want to get married because for a lot of my life, it seemed like their relationship was imbalanced. And I actually, years ago, after turning into an adult, I talked with my mother about this, and she actually expressed regret. And then there my parents' relationship became a lot more balanced around that time as they became older. And my mother actually explained to me that because she was an Asian woman going to America after marrying my father, she had to deal with a lot of stereotypes about Asian women, so she purposefully acted more like that, acted more, I guess, aggressive or strong-willed, maybe standoffish could be another word, because so many bullshit stereotypes were thrown at her and people expected her to be a certain way or pressured her to be a certain way. So yeah, and she told me about how my father at a certain point even confronted her about those things, and that brought a lot of balance to their relationship. But it shows the fucked upness of sexism, that it'll bleed into a relationship even like that, where someone will feel pressured to act a certain way, and racism as well. And I see this a lot in racial spaces online. And I've talked about this in another video. Comrade Confucius, he's another YouTuber in Malaysia, and there is rampant misogyny in Asian advocacy spaces like r/AZN identity. So parts of it is good because they'll be very aggressive and like, oh, we need more rights for Asian men, but that bleeds into degrading Asian women and calling them lose or race traitors, and this goes into other Hoppas are self-hating race traitors and white loving blah blah blah. That's a whole nother topic. It's not really what I want to talk about, but it shows that spaces like that, kind of part of, there's a term called the manosphere. So man, MANO sphere. So online, it's like incel, involuntary celibate spaces. Any place that promotes toxic masculinity over the rights of women. So yeah, we can talk about toxic femininity. So like, there are things that our Asian identity talks about, like, and I've met a woman like this in real life, an Asian woman who was very degrading towards Asian men. Yes, there are people like that who are ashamed that they are Asian or black or whatever, and they will Uncle Tom or bootlick, degrade themselves and everyone of their race or a particular gender or facet of their race in order to ingratiate themselves to the dominant power. Now, the problem with this, like r/Asian identity, the problem with saying Asian women are like this and Asian men are all great, awesome, amazing, it's not true. And even through being taught to hate oneself through racism, and I experienced this, like, I wished I was white or black growing up. And I never, like, consciously realized it, like, oh, I wish I was black or whatever, but I gravitated more towards things like rock music, which was predominantly white dominated, or rap music, which was predominantly black dominated, and I would try to incorporate parts of what I perceived as people in power. So like rock stars or rap stars, and I would try to act more like them or look more like them or make music more like them, or because I saw them as powerful people who were well liked and they got the things that I wanted. They got money and wealth and riches. So this brings me back to why I'm making this. There is this misconception that, oh, only women gravitate towards power and act in ways like Jordan Peterson says, women are hypergamous. They practice hypergamy, where they will only date rich and powerful men. And hello, guys do that too. Men try to get the most powerful woman to date them. They try to get the richest woman, the most beautiful woman. And we see this rise of influencers like Andrew Tate or Nick Fuentes or Ben Shapiro, all these people who want to return to 1950s traditional values of patriarchal norms. It's very telling, too, that they choose the 1950s, which is right before the 60s, which was what? The civil rights movements. So racism and segregation was really on the forefront of issues, and equality was brought to light. And the birth control pill became widely available in the 60s. So and the Vietnam War happened a little around that time, maybe later 60s. But these three issues, it's what? Anti-violence, women being able to control their sexuality, so whether they have a baby or not, and racism. So people who want to return to traditional norms, it's really, they want more power. They want to be able to boss around women as sexual objects. Now, people, especially when they talk about trans rights issues, they'll say like, well, there's just fundamental differences between the sexes, and look, gender and sex, these are two separate concepts, right? So sex is like what genitalia you're born with and whether you have testosterone, estrogen, whatever. I'm not a fucking scientist. I don't know everything in minute detail, but I understand that concepts like man and woman, yeah, they're intertwined with sex. Gender and sex are intertwined and correlated, but they're not dependent on each other. There are very feminine men and very masculine women who have varying levels of estrogen and testosterone or whatever, and everyone has different levels of strength or appearance. And yeah, there may be generalities between the genders, like maybe more men are generally stronger than more women, more males are generally stronger than more females. But look at how many amazing women athletes there are, how many non-athletic men there are. We're not in hunter-gatherer tribes anymore. And the job market, like gendered roles in the job market where women were expected to work certain jobs, like we live in a very modern world, and there can be male nurses, male housekeepers, there can be women CEOs, whatever. And it doesn't make sense to live in a society where you're taking pretty much half the fucking population of the world and forcing them to be weak, forcing them to be housekeepers, forcing them to work jobs that they don't want to work, forcing them to be pretty much stay at home baby producing factories, which is what the whole reversal of Roe v. Wade and abortion banning and the whole conservative Christian fascist mindset is trying to do, is like women are meant to be mothers and they have to be stay-at-home moms, and that's the entirety of their fucking existence. So I'm really grateful for my mother, because although both my parents are conservative Christians in many ways, my mother was actually and is actually very feminist in a lot of ways, which I think people are like, oh, Asia is very patriarchal, whatever. That's another racist myth propagated by Western nations, because it's pretty much, yeah, there are many patriarchal power structures everywhere. But America is, in my eyes, not really that much more progressive. Like, maybe in certain aspects, but I see plenty of abuses on all levels in America that happens, and now we're seeing a regression in women's rights. So my overall point in talking about these kind of things is that women are equal to men in every way, in every inherent value. There are good and bad men, there are good and bad women, there are strong and weak men, there are strong and weak women. Every individual should be regarded through their merits and flaws. And we shouldn't be throwing blankets over people, trying to squish them into compartments of what we think a man or a woman should be. People should just be people. So, yeah, abortion is a right. If men were the ones getting pregnant and we didn't want to have a baby, that wouldn't even be on the docket. We would just be allowed to do it. And here's another thing that people don't talk about, right? I saw recently that Robert De Niro, who is 79 years old, is expecting a baby. And it led me down a little rabbit hole where I was reading. And it's pretty well known that women after, I believe, 35 years old, their fertility rates pretty much go way down. And that's used a lot against women, like, oh, women over 30 are pretty much worthless. Ugh. Which is insane to me, because there are very many sexy, beautiful women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and up. And it's creepy. Like, what are you doing? Fetishizing women in their teens? Like, or teenagers, teenage girls? Like, what? People don't talk about this, but Robert De Niro, 79 years old, there's this stereotype that women like older men and older men are more worth it. I was reading this article and it said that men under 20, their sperm produces more urogenital defects and other defects, and men over 40, their sperm produces more cardiovascular defects in their offspring, in their children. So it's very interesting. It's like, hey, it seems to correlate with our understanding of women's fertility, that between 20 and, let's say, like early 20s to late 30s, kind of in the middle. So actually, I guess late 20s, early 30s, that's kind of the prime fertility age for men and women, it seems like. So things to think about. I want to end just by saying men and women are equals. Yeah, every individual has equal abilities and merits and whatever. You can judge people, whatever, but whether they're good or bad, but nothing inherent within us by what genitals we have, what sex we are born with, determines who we are. So, thanks for watching.